There was a gentleman who liked his tequila, and he also had a horse, and he insisted that the horse would come to the ceremony. So he had a close friend who would bring that horse. He kept it outside of the pyre site, outside of the circle. The horse was kind of in the premises, and he had a friend of his, once the fire was going, pour a bottle of tequila on top of it.
We all are gonna die. 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 Why don't we help each other prepare for it? Without death there could not be life. I'm talking about end of life conversations, conversations about the end of life. Death and dying, grief and loss, conversations about the end of life.
Hey, everybody, we want to interrupt this episode to ask for some help.
Yes, indeed. We would like to add value to our podcast for you, our beloved community, as we move into our third
How
year
cool is
of
that?
being here.
30 years. No,
3 years.
just starting our third year. We're very excited about that. So we really do. We want to add some value. And we'd love to have as many as possible of you go to our podcast notes and click on the link to take just a few minutes to do a survey for us and tell us what would make it more valuable for you. So we look
Yeah,
forward to hearing from you.
and don't hesitate. Whatever is on your heart, there's a little space there that you can add your thoughts about what you'd like to hear more about. Maybe, even if it's books or music, whatever, just
Yeah.
let us know because we are here to in support of you,
Yeah.
our listeners. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
And now back to our regularly scheduled program.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody. We're really, really happy today to be speaking to Melina. My name is the Reverend Wakil David Matthews. Melina is a longtime volunteer for the Crestone End of Life Project, or the CEOLP, which is located in south central Colorado, as she says, up against a 14,000-foot mountain. The CEOLP is a non-denominational, nonprofit organization promoting informed end-of-life choices and supporting their fulfillment for the Saguache
Sawash.
County?
We call it Sawash.
Sawash, for the Sawash County residents. The Crestone End of Life Project's mission is to provide practical support to individuals making informed end-of-life choices. They assist family and friends in planning meaningful memorial ceremonies and rituals, and they have established a natural burial ground, that's really great, and a permanent and legal open-air cremation site in the Crestone area, which I think is pretty unique. And so, Melina, we really appreciate you showing up today and being willing to talk with us. So we'll just dive right in and just have you tell us about this project.
Sure. Thank you so much, Reverend Wakil. We are unique. We are the only open-air cremation site in the United States, as far as I'm aware. And so we have an open-air cremation site, and we have a green burial site as well. And as you originally, I'm going to tell an amazing story, actually, that goes back
Good.
almost 20 years. And but I'm going to start off by saying, because it is such an amazing story, I'm sure lots of people are going to want to know more, and you'll post websites later. But the part I really want to start with is we are a completely volunteer organization. We have no employees. And we serve our community as a funeral service and as a green burial site. And we really start when death arises, not prior to that. And we can only service people who live in Saguache County and are residents for a minimum of 90 days. So this is unfortunately not a service that we open up to the entire world because we wouldn't be able to make that happen. So that's important to know. And and also at the end, I'll talk a little bit about a broader implication. I'll amaze you with an interesting story, but it does have broader implications to our society and our world. So what happened to me?
So moving to that county would not be a terrible thing. It's a beautiful place.
Oh, it's a stunning place. But in order to obtain our services, you must be here for a minimum of 90 days. It's
90
really a
days,
community service by the community,
I
for
see.
the community.
Yeah,
And because
yeah.
we're older and volunteers, we just don't have the resource
Yeah, we don't
to
have the
do this
capacity.
more than 6 or 8 times a
Sure.
year, which is what I
So
want.
so it's more really of an example of what maybe others might be able to do, and
Absolutely,
maybe yeah.
absolutely, and
Okay,
most
great.
importantly, how, in our culture, we have divorced ourselves from death. And so
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
this is a process of a hands-on experience. How can you and your next of kin be involved in your own process? And I have
Yeah.
watched for many, many, many years, over and over again, how families transform. Because when there is a
Mhm.
hands-on experience when a loved one has died, it's a lot easier to move through that grieving process, as opposed to
Sure.
in our culture where we just make a phone call and that's it, show up on the day. So,
Mhm.
so I'll explain. The way I got
Yeah.
involved was I knew a couple, and their elder mother was living in the premises with them. She had her own little apartment on the property. And of course, she got to a place where there was a serious illness. She chose not to do the medical route. And we
Mhm.
had lots of community, lots of people checking in on her, bringing food, as most communities would do. And I happened to be honored to be one of the 12 people around her deathbed when she was dying. And after she died, we all toasted her with her favorite beer. We sang songs. We did her favorite prayers, um, told funny stories. And our founder, who is a woman named Stephanie Gaines, turned to William, the son of the woman who passed, and said, "What do you plan to do with the body?" After we had spent, 45 minutes celebrating. And he said, "Wow, I hadn't thought about that. I guess I'll bring her to a neighboring town and have her cremated." And she says, "Why not do it here?" And his
Hmm.
eyes got really big. And my mind said, "What?" And he said, "Is that possible?" And she said, "So and so did it a couple of years ago." And he said,
Hmm.
"Well, look into it." And my immediate thought was, Melina, if we do this, we're going, you know. And there you have it. So next, what wound up happening is I was included with Stephanie and two other women, and we were asked to work with Laverne's body. So we
Mm.
undressed her, we washed her, we anointed her, we redressed her. We laid her out in a beautiful setting. We took away any medical stuff in the vicinity, and she was able to lay in state for 3 days. And that is what we
Wow.
now call care of the body. And my
Yeah.
response to this was, "Oh my God, this is what humanity has been doing for hundreds of thousands of years." It was,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, so organic, so natural, so
Mhm.
what we've been doing,
Yeah.
and so very healing. And so that's how I got involved way back when.
Okay.
And so the way
Yeah.
this really works is we now have it down to quite a system. It would take
Mhm.
about 25 to 30 volunteers to do a cremation from beginning to end. We do the
Mm.
green burial, which takes a lot less manpower. Um,
Yeah.
Usually we have people lay in state. The other thing that's most important for registration is people must be registered before they die. We can't serve
Okay.
anybody who is not already registered with us and
Mhm.
already past that 3 month window of living in
Mhm.
the county
Mhm.
that we serve. Um,
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know, our audience to know that, at least in Colorado and many other states, you should find out for your own jurisdiction. There, it is perfectly legal and appropriate to have people lie in state for as many as 3 days, sometimes even more. So I love that you bring that up and that that's a part of what you folks are doing there,
mhm.
and making sure people know that that's something they can do.
Right, right, right. Absolutely. And in some cases, usually we don't go past that. But, in our world also, people don't have their closest relatives living close by. So people have to kind of
Yeah.
fly in. And so we
Hmm.
work with the family who has heard about this, maybe, but they're
Yeah.
walking into a situation that they have no idea what's actually going to happen.
Pretty unique.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yes.
and it's so you can see the transformation on their face because they just
Yeah.
watch the
Yeah.
process, and if I forget to mention
Beautiful.
later, we have 2 different websites, which you guys will post, and we have lots of videos and experiences on the website that will flesh out more in pictures what I'm about to share. Um,
Beautiful. Thank you.
sure. So we have about 13 teams that make this happen. And the first team that gets called when somebody is deceased is facilitators. And we check to make sure that they are registered and that all the paperwork is in order. And the facilitator
Mhm.
kind of oversees the entire process. So there'll be usually one facilitator. And then we have something we call a family liaison. Instead of having all the different teams reach out to a family at this moment in time, we have one designated person that talks with the family and then confers with
Perfect.
the rest of us
Yeah.
to say what needs to happen next.
Yeah.
So that's a family liaison. We have a team of people who do an electronic death certificate, which is legal with what happens in the state of Colorado these days. And it's quite a
Mhm.
process from what I understand. I'm
Yeah.
not very technologically impaired, proficient, I should say. So then what happens after death has been declared either by hospice or the county coroner, um, we can come in and do care of the body, which I've explained earlier. The body is kept on ice packs so that it's cold, and
Mhm.
we don't have too severe summers, which is kind of nice. But so those ice
Mhm.
packs get changed twice a day. And then we have a variety of other teams. One is called a juniper team. When we light the pyre, we lay on, actually, before that, people line up on the site before the body arrives and are handed a small twig of juniper. And
Mm.
after the body arrives, there'll be a procession in to the site, led by a man usually who's playing a Native American flute. And then the body
Mm.
proceeds, and then the family proceeds, and then the community proceeds. And they all take their little juniper twig with them. And once we get into the pyre site, the body is laid in there. And usually I'm getting ahead of myself here, but we wind up putting little twigs of juniper on top. So the body is laid down in a shroud on the
Mhm.
pyre. And then the family will come along and say prayers and put down little twigs of juniper, flowers, gifts, chocolate, liquor. Some people pour a little bit of tequila on top. And depending
Sure.
on the preference of the person, of course,
Mhm.
everything is designed by the person who is deceased or by their immediate
Nice.
family. And most things are written out as well. And so
Great.
that's where the juniper twig comes in place. We put that
Mhm.
on top,
Mhm.
and then the fire team will proceed with their process. So,
And juniper's a native plant in
yes,
your part of the world, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
our
Yeah.
trees are basically pinon and juniper. And
Mhm.
the
Mhm.
natives use the juniper in ceremony as well. And so it creates a lot of
Nice.
smoke, and it will send the prayers up, and it helps the fire move along as well. So it's something that the again, participants, family, close of kin, even the rest of the community, anybody can lay on a twig or a card or
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever they want and say a prayer, usually to themselves, but it could be done out loud as well. The entire ceremony is created by the person who passed. So it's completely
Mhm.
their wishes. And we have
Nice.
people in the community who would do Jewish prayers. We have a father who would do a Catholic prayer or Christian prayer. There are many Buddhists in town and a Hindu ashram. So people can have nothing. People can sit
Mhm.
home, play a little music,
Mhm.
they can have silence. So it's really
Yeah.
completely designed by the family and by the deceased. So to get back to my list, we have a juniper team. We have a site prep team that will come out the day before to kind of make sure all the site is in order. They put in the newspaper and some of the wood on the bottom of the pyre, and the body goes on top of that. There's a grate that separates the two. And then we have the morning of the cremation. There are pallbearers who are picked in advance. And we legally cannot transport a body, but the family can. And fill
Mm.
out the death certificate. They get I forget, there's a legal name for this, but there is a piece of paper that rides with the body. That's part of the legal
Mhm.
process.
Okay.
I can't remember what it's called.
Hmm.
Then on the morning of, before the body arrives, there's a parking team. Sometimes we could have over 100 people at a cremation, and
Wow.
other times you
Yeah.
can have 5 or 6 or more volunteers. It really depends on the
Mhm.
situation and on the death.
Mhm.
So the parking team would vary based on expected numbers of people. We have a host.
So there's space there for parking for
Oh, yeah, we
everybody?
have a parking spot,
Yeah.
and we have a rather elaborate way of where the family would park, where the hearse is parked,
Mhm.
where the volunteers park, etc. Yeah, so it's
Uh-huh.
just a
Beautiful.
setup. And so we have the parking team. We then have a hosting team, and these are people who hand
Uh-huh.
out the juniper twigs. We have a bell at the site that we ring when the body arrives, and we ring it again before the procession up to the site starts. So the hosting team is part of that. Um, I mentioned earlier the procession is usually not officiated, but led in with a local man who makes his own Native American flutes, and he plays them
Huh.
as well. And again, if
Uh-huh.
the family wanted something different, they could have something different, but most people like
Sure.
our neighbor and our friend to do that. So that usually winds up leading in that procession. And then people fall behind it. Closest kin
Mhm.
go next, and family, and then the rest of the community as well. Um, so after we bring the body up and everybody's around in that circle, there is usually a master of ceremonies that the family picks, thanks people for coming, saying initial prayers. We like to start the fire as soon as possible. All of our fires, all of our cremations are done early in the morning because we live in a high
Mm.
risk fire zone, and
Oh,
that's
yeah.
when the winds are the least aggressive. So
Okay.
I forget if it's 6:30 during the summer and maybe 7 in the winter, maybe 6 to
Okay.
7, something like that. But there could be
Mhm.
cold mornings in the wintertime
Yeah.
when the
Yeah.
volunteers stand out there and it can be pretty cold, but everything's done early
Yeah.
morning. So the sunrise
Yeah.
usually happens sometime over the mountain while we're near sketches of
Mm.
them. So,
Wow.
and I do
Beautiful.
believe there's videos somewhere on the website that will show
Mhm.
some pictures.
Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing those.
Yeah, amazing. One of the most powerful teams is our fire team, and
I was just gonna ask.
our fire team are amazing because they are really not only well trained in what to look for and what to pay attention to and how to work with the fire, but also how to be respectful of the family and the ceremony that's happening at the same time.
Mhm.
So they're really quite remarkable, and all of our volunteers always shadow whatever job they're going to volunteer for, and we do more
Mhm.
than one as well. Nobody's
Sure.
It can change anytime you want. And but they really are exceptional and well trained, and they will carry it
Mhm.
through. The majority of the ceremonies will last about an hour, and
Mhm.
and then the family can often plan a potluck or a meal somewhere else or another ceremony, or just go back home. And it really depends
Mhm.
on the situation and the person's commitment and interest in the community as well. And,
Sure.
so then there's a late fire team that shows up once the initial guys, because 'cause they're there prior to when the rest of us.
Yeah, they've been there a while
They
already,
have been
right?
there a while
Yeah.
already. So the late
And
fire.
is part of their
Yeah.
is part of their work to pay attention to the surroundings and make sure that fire's not getting away? Is that part of their job too?
It is ultimately for sure, but the way we have built our fire site, and you can see it, it's in a circle of bamboo, so there is no
Mhm.
brush in that circle, and even if a spark was to come out on occasion, it doesn't have very far to go.
Okay.
Again, if there's a fire ban or if the winds are up, we do not do what we do.
Can't do it.
And the people
Yeah.
will have to pick either a green burial, or there are other options in the valley that can be taken care of.
Mhm.
And so
Okay.
fire ban is definitely a priority.
Sure.
In the early stages of this, when the person just dies and on the morning of, the facilitator will make numerous phone calls to county commissioners, county services, 911, our local fire department, usually brings a truck to the site as well, just in case.
Oh, well, okay.
Knock wood, we have never had that happen and don't plan to do it in the
Mm.
future. But we have to take care of that process, and as I said, if there's a ban on, we can't do what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense.
And then the last team, the late fire team is really in place to make sure that things have burnt uniformly as possible, and to close
Mhm.
up the pyre, you'll see that it's cinder block, mostly
Mhm.
what the fire's underneath that, and then a grate on top of it. And all of that is sealed up so that a little bit of air can move through, but nothing can escape, because it will take hours. Sometimes the next morning, the embers could still be warm.
Sure.
And that brings us to the last team, which is the cremains. There are 2 or 3 people who
Mhm.
go out the next day, usually around 11 in the morning, and we separate the ash and put it all back together in a bucket that the family can take with them.
Hmm.
And that is the final piece of process of collecting the
Hmm.
ash and cleaning up the site and getting it ready for the next process.
Hmm. So I know that with regular cremation, there's bones left over that they have to crush. Is that true for you all as well?
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
Buddhists like to
Yeah.
call those relics, and for
Hmm.
some of our Buddhist people, they like them to be intact, but for the
Hmm.
majority we usually ask the family if that's an appropriate question for them, and
Hmm.
if not,
Hmm.
they will be we do have some equipment that we can grind it down a little bit, pound it down a little bit, so that it's not
Yeah.
recognizable as human bone.
Yeah. His bone. Yeah.
Mhm,
And that's fairly normal. I mean, that's pretty much the way it's done in the regular cremation world.
mhm.
But this sounds like, for one thing, much less toxic because of the chemicals that are used in the other in the death industrial complex version of cremation.
Right.
Um, and so that's good. That sounds like a really beautiful ceremony. Can you maybe just share an example or a story about someone one of the times that this has happened?
Ooh, well, there's lots of them. There was a gentleman who liked his tequila, and he also had a horse, and he insisted that the horse would come to the ceremony. So
Oh
he
wow.
had a close friend who would bring that horse. It kept it outside of the pyre site, outside of the circle, but the horse was
Hmm.
kind of in the premises. And he had a friend of his, once the fire was going, pour a bottle of tequila on top of, you know, and
That probably helped the fire.
yes, it does a little bit. It does a little bit. One of the other things that happened quite often, we live in a large valley, an agricultural valley. It's the highest agricultural valley in the country, I believe, because we're at 8.4 altitude, 8.7,
Hmm.
something like that. And so there are wide expanses and huge views. And we
Hmm.
often like to watch. Sometimes the smoke from the pyre could be quite interesting to watch. Sometimes
Hmm.
it forms different images, sometimes it hovers, sometimes it goes straight up. The same with the sun, the same with the clouds on the morning. It's not unusual for some some piece of nature, some bird to do an amazing circle just at the right moment, kind of thing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And
To come in and
we often speculate
visit.
that the person's saying
Yeah.
their last farewell or their last wave,
Sure. Yeah.
wave, so to speak.
Visitation.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had mentioned the native flute and I think some other about the indigenous. So has there been any input or is there an indigenous presence in the valley that is aware or works with you on this at all?
There are several people in Crestone itself that do sweat lodges and do Native American ceremony. So if there
Hmm.
was a family, like actually, we recently did served a family where the man was quite into shamanism, and he had a
Mm.
shamanic teacher who lived about an hour away, and she
Oh,
came
okay.
down and she was the MC for his service. And one of the
Hmm.
other local women who were involved in that tradition did a drumming and some dancing as well. And as I
Hmm.
said earlier, the ceremony is very much up to the family and the person who
Sure.
passed. So it really
Hmm.
reflects that, this was sacred land to the Utes thousand
Hmm.
years ago.
Hmm.
And from what I
Hmm.
understand, the rumor that I've heard or the customs that I heard is that natives didn't live here along this side of the mountain. It's a rather harsh
Mm.
environment in the winter, but they
Okay.
recognized the ceremonial and the sacredness of the land. And different
Sure.
tribes would come at different times to do their rituals, to do their vision quests, and things of that nature. So they called this the Bloodless Valley because the different Native American tribes, from my understanding, never warred here. This was a peaceful,
Mm.
sacred spell. I'm getting chills. Peaceful.
Yeah.
Now I'm choking up. Peaceful, sacred land that they all recognized, and they really honored that. Then they would.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's yeah, and to be kind of carrying on that presence there.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. What kind of things come up as challenges for you folks when you're
One of the
doing this
things,
work?
challenges. the biggest challenge I can think of, and also the biggest reward, is that this is a very unusual process. And because I've been
Yes.
involved for so long, my brothers have kind of gotten used to it. You know, but there's a lot of family member that comes in, it's not only a harsh time to have your next of kin pass in whatever the
Yeah.
circumstances are, but here you're coming into a situation where these people are going to do an open air cremation. You know, you don't even know what that means in many levels,
Right.
as I did when I first heard that many years ago. It's like,
Mhm.
what? You know, and so that process is really quite remarkable because this is such a community oriented process that, by the time the fire starts and a couple of people stand up and say their offerings and mention whatever, it could be anything from music to a prayer to reminiscences to stories.
Mhm.
We've heard lots of stories about someone in our community when they were young from their brothers and
Yeah.
sisters, so we get educated on what they might have been like, what the family life was like, and then their elders or their siblings get educated by watching their community step forward. And you can literally
Mhm.
see a transformation in the person's face, in the family members who come in and they're very trepidatious in the beginning and very,
Sure.
I don't know what I'm doing in this environment. And then you compare that to other funerals that they've been to in a sterile room with flowers all over and caskets that
Mhm.
are opened or closed, and, the way we normally as a culture treat death, this is a
Yeah.
very different experience.
Wow.
So it's
That's
remarkable to
beautiful.
watch that transformation happen within that
Mhm.
3-day period and after the fact.
How many people actually live in the county?
That is an excellent question that I don't think I really know. What I can
Okay.
say is Saguache County is the second poorest county in the state of
Mhm.
Colorado, and the only county, I believe, that does not have a stoplight.
There's
Something
a
else for
there's a
your audience
really
to wrap their brain around.
yeah, right. What? No stoplights? Oh my
No
goodness.
stoplight
I
in
lived I
Saguache
lived
County.
I lived in a town for a while with one stoplight. We were pretty proud of ourselves.
Yes, exactly. Well, this is a whole county. I wonder if there is another
Yeah.
one at this point, but that's the folklore that I've heard. I've lived here since
That's
2000,
beautiful.
so I've been here for a while.
Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
the
Great.
last point I'd really like to make, this is not easy for people to carry on and carry
Yeah.
over in this time frame. We were kind of
Sure.
grandfathered in because 20 some odd years ago, we were able to make it happen. But there was numerous groups of us volunteers who would go to meeting after meeting after meeting of
Sure.
missioner meetings and all sorts of stuff to get permission to be regulated to do what we're doing. And there are
Mhm.
several states now, I believe Vermont and Maine and a couple of others are attempting this process.
Mhm.
And I wish that we assist with our Informed Final Choices website, and because we like to share what we know. And it really does take
Yeah.
a village. But the thing that's a real takeaway, even for people who live in New York, which is a place I used to live, is
Mhm.
that having that hands-on experience, no matter where you are in this world or in this country, you can participate, actively
Yeah.
participate with the funeral home, with the crematorium, with the green burial, whatever the process is chosen, to
Yeah.
participate as much as possible, to have your say, to be present when the
Mhm.
body goes into a crematorium. They can make arrangements for all of this. And we've just
Yeah.
come to a place where, the funeral industry likes to do what they do, and we tend to
Yeah.
just acquiesce to that. So my strongest, viewpoint to pass on is even if you can't do what we've been allowed to do here, you can participate. You do have rights. You do have privileges, and you can
Yeah.
make it as
Absolutely.
much of your own as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, we talk about that a lot on this podcast, and not only that, but as you said earlier, the importance of making your wishes known and having it in writing, and make sure you've got people who will follow your wishes,
Mhm.
um, and uh, and that can be difficult at times. We've also run into times when people were very clear about what they wanted to have happen, but their family members, after they were no longer able to make decisions, decided not to do that because that wasn't what they wanted, and that seems like a really sad outcome. So again, it really helps to, as much as possible, be ahead of this, in front of this, and make sure everybody is participating and wants to help and knows what you want and is willing to do what you want. And so it's just a wonderful, wonderful service that you're doing there to create a place for people to have that opportunity and really be able to make those choices ahead of time. So thank you for doing that. And thanks for being on the podcast. It's really great to have you and to learn about this really very, very unique funeral pyre. Who would have thought?
Yeah, yeah,
Do you know
yeah.
if there's anywhere else in the world? I mean, I know not in the United States, but are there other places in the world that have this?
Well, of course, in India, open air cremation is quite
Of course,
common, and
yeah,
it
yeah,
happens on the side of the Ganges, I believe, and in other places
sure.
as well. And other cultures have different. Yeah, there are sky burials that happen
Mm-hmm.
in Tibet and Nepal and places high up in the Himalayas. So I'm sure there are lots of different places. There are burials at sea as well. Um,
Sure.
so
Yeah,
it
we can
does
even do that
vary
here.
a little bit around the world. We're not that unique when it comes to around the world
Right.
thing. But,
Yeah.
I'd like to end on the process of very much, not only I'm thinking how to say this. It really helps ease the emotional stress and trauma of a close death, and the
Mm-hmm.
grieving process to be able to participate. So again, even if you're in LA or New York, by being participatory and taking an active stand and being as present as possible,
Yep.
through whatever processes the person would want to have happen, it really does help with the grieving process and with saying your farewells to your loved ones.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really does. It's so true. Well, wonderful. You had a beautiful Mary, I called her Saint Mary,
Mhm.
poem, and you wanted me to read it, so I will do that. And it is this wonderful one. We may have even read this at some point because it's such a beautiful poem. It's by Mary Oliver, one of our favorite poets and an amazing poet. She says, "When death comes, like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measle pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering, what is it going to be like, that cottage of darkness? And therefore I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood, and I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility, and I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy and as singular, and each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, toward silence. And each body a lion of courage and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was the bridegroom, taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I have made of my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened and full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world." Exactly.
Aho and
Thank
amen.
you, Saint Mary Oliver.
Mhm.
Yeah. So thank you very much again. And we will definitely have podcast notes. We'll direct people to where they can find more information about what you're doing. And I hope more people will think about doing this in their own communities. I think this is really a beautiful, beautiful, precious service that you provide.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you again for all that you do as well. And
Mm,
the trend is happening. The change has
it
taken
is. People
place.
are starting to notice. Yeah,
Yes.
it's really true.
Blessings.
Okay, well, take care.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us today. Please stick around after the credits for our afterthoughts, and it helps our numbers if you stay until the end. We want to thank my children, Nate, Vivian, Nina, and her fiance Asher, for the excellent opening song, and a special thanks to our awesome editor, Sam Zemke, who is also a guest on our podcast. You can listen to him on Season 4, Episode 5. Also, thank you to Charles Heaston, the composer of the original music you are listening to now.
And of course, thanks to you, our audience, and all of our amazing guests. Please come back next week for another great episode. Share this with your friends, family, and community. We hope you will subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack. Each guest's additional information will be found in the podcast notes. And of course, if you have a good end-of-life story to share, please reach out. We are always eager to hear from you.
Well, that was another wonderful episode. And unfortunately, Ana Luisa was not able to join us this time, but we know she will love the episode when she gets to hear it. And what an incredible service to provide in a community, a very absolutely unique service. It doesn't happen anywhere else. But to be able to really honor, like what Mary Oliver said, not to just live this life as, simply having visited this world, but to really, really enjoy the preciousness of life. And they really do honor that there in their community. So, maybe go live there for 90 days if you want to have this happen. It sounds like it's a gorgeous place to live, or work with your own community to create a way for this to happen there. So much love to all of you, and thank you for staying till the end. We really appreciate that. Blessings, and see you next time. Adios.